cat behind me started groaning. I don't know why. Um, so I'm Mika. Today I'm going to walk you through how to think poker using GTO Wizard. And just really quick, if you can, in the chat, can you all put if you've ever used GTO Wizard, if you've watched YouTube videos, or what your experience is in GTO Wizard, just so I can get an idea of where everyone's at. I got used a little bit. Yes, poorly. Watch my study mates use GTO Wizard. Love that. I watch others use it. I've watched videos, never used it. Used it a little bit, watched it in study group, have looked at it while others use it. Perfect. Because my goal today is to really go down to the nuts and bolts of using GTO Wizard, really just for first timers. So if you've watched YouTube videos, some of it might be a little repetitive in what you've seen, but I really want to make sure that you understand its benefits in using it, but then also the limitations in using it, and really like not to use it as the rule book, but more of a guide, which I'll go into a little more in a bit. So what we're gonna do today is I meant to go bigger, sorry. All right, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna briefly introduce myself. Some of you I've talked to in the past and briefly know me. And some of you I've meeting for the first time today. Then I'm gonna number two, I'm gonna go over some of the most important terms. They're gonna be terms that I just am throwing around left and right while I'm talking through GTO Wizard. You've probably heard a lot of the terms before, but just so everybody's on the same page, I'll go through them really quick. The third thing we're gonna go to is why use GTO Wizard? There are a lot of tools out there, and there's a lot of ways to study. So why do I use GTO Wizard? Next, I'm going to go through a quick navigation, and it won't be so quick. It's actually going to probably be the meat and potatoes of the presentation today. Which aspects of GTO Wizard I use the most and recommend you use to study, and how to most effectively use it, and what questions to ask yourself while you're using it. Five, I'll briefly go over creating a study plan. Honestly, creating a study plan should probably be its own seminar in itself. It's so wealthy in information and so important to your game that learning how to craft something that's so important as creating a study plan for poker would really benefit you in the long run. And then the last thing we'll do is some Q&A. All right. So who am I? I am Mika. That's me. This is my cat, Calvin, who's groaning in the background. I am a professional poker player. I have been playing professionally for 2 years. I actually just had my 2-year anniversary last week. And before that, I did about 7 years in data analytics in the corporate environment, and COVID happened. And I just was always the type of person who thrived in the corporate environment. And I always loved being near people and learning and collaborating. And once COVID happened, I was in this room and I never really had that opportunity anymore. That didn't feel very, virtual, right? Like there's a different feeling between being virtual and being in person, and gathering energy from other people. So I started to really question, like, if I'm not completely fulfilled right now in my life, then why am I still doing this? And why not take a shot at something that I've always dreamed about, that's been the most consistent thing in my life? So I decided to take the leap to poker. What I didn't know at the time is I didn't even know what the word GTO meant. Like I knew what game theory was, because I'm an economics major in college, but I didn't know how it applied to poker. I didn't understand or know any of the tools. I really didn't have a network. So like looking back, and all of you who are here are way ahead of where I was, just because you're here and you have this resource. So like kudos to you. You're doing the right things. But I just want to kind of paint this picture of where I was 2 years ago, where I am now, and that using a tool like GTO Wizard isn't that much of a hurdle. if you have the foundation of it. Super quickly, I live in Cleveland, Ohio. I recommended and created the Pocket Queen mentorship program, which some folks in this group, lovely to see, are a part of it right now in the pilot program. I'm a Team 100K Pro. It is a small organization that targets recreational poker players to help them build confidence and build foundational skills in the poker world, and I support some of those folks' growth. I love using GTO Wizard. I've used it almost every single day with my study group that I meet with every day, and we use it to bounce ideas off each other, to learn and help each other grow. And then I love cats, but it's not limited to cats. I love all animals. That's my biggest distraction in life probably is those TikTok videos with animals in them. All right, so important terms. If anybody can put in the chat any terms you see here that you aren't fully aware of. I'm just curious where everybody's at. Or maybe you know, or you've heard it and you're just, you need a little refresher on it. You're all geniuses. That's great.
We are geniuses. Just the most confusing term that people mix up all the time is equity versus EV. Perhaps just made a strong distinction over the terms.
I'm gonna go over each one of them. Don't worry, Nan. You're all geniuses, but just in case you're shy. I'm gonna start with GTO. So GTO confuses a lot of people, and you'll hear a lot of times GTO versus exploit poker. And I want to preface, they're really not different. But what people refer to as GTO is different than exploit poker. So when people say GTO, they're referring to this term called Nash equilibrium. It is a model that if one person plays perfectly to make the most money, the counter opponent will also play perfectly to make the most money. In the long run, if both of those players play perfect against each other, they will net $0. They will break even over 10 million iterations of that example. So that is called GTO Nash equilibrium, because equilibrium break even. What exploit poker is taking into account that we don't play perfectly, right? Like none of us are perfect players. I'm sure you've all played poker before and you're bonking your head on the wall being like, why the heck did that guy call a 3-2 offsuit? And then he gets there. So nobody plays perfect. So what exploit poker is that people are referring to is, how do I adjust my game given these people are not playing perfectly? So the reason I make this distinction is because game theory optimization, or GTO, technically, if you are playing GTO, you are playing perfectly against each opponent that you're playing versus. So it's saying you are taking into consideration that person is calling off with 3-2 offsuit. You are taking into consideration that this person is only jamming aces in this spot. So that's GTO, but it's also exploit. So I just want to, I know that confuses a lot of people. So really it's Nash equilibrium versus GTO node locking, or non-Nash equilibrium when you say that. So just wanted to throw that out there. We will be questioning some of the things we're looking at today while we're reviewing, and that will be more of that exploit that's traditionally spoken of. All right, and then we have expected value. So expected value is going to be if you make a particular decision, pre-flop, post-flop, anywhere along the way in your decision tree, how many average big blinds or money will you make over the long run if you made that decision infinitely? So I have a question. If you were to fold pre-flop, what is the expected value or how many average big blinds will you make over the long run if you fold pre-flop?
0.
Perfect. Right. So when we're thinking about expected value, it's always in relation to something else. So our relation that we could compare it to is that $0 fold line. So 0 is going to be our equilibrium. You fold, you make $0 over the long run. Let's say you have pocket aces. I don't expect anybody here to know what the average big blinds you're going to make over the long run is, because every situation is different, but you will assume that it's going to be positive expected value, correct? You're going to make, on average, more big blinds over the long run than you should lose with pocket aces. And then the opposite is probably true with 7-2 offsuit. It's probably going to be a negative amount. So you could actually lose maybe 5 big blinds per 100 big blinds that you put in if you played it, if you raised it pre-flop 1 million times over the long run. So that's what expected value is. That's really going to be the focus of what GTO Wizard is analyzing. It's going to look at how can you make the most EV or big blinds on average, making the best choices in each position that you're in. Now, equity, on the other hand, is just the chance of winning the hand. So while expected value is how much will you win, equity is how often will you win if you get all 5 cards. So let's say you check down to the river. Let's say you have a pre-flop decision and you check down all the way to the river. Your equity when the hand starts will say, hey, you have an 80% chance of winning this hand. That's going to be your equity. And then chip EV, I'm going to focus a lot on that while we're going through the different positions. This is counter to ICM, which you might have heard of. Chip EV is going to just be the value of your chip is equal to some value of your dollar. So I just made a really easy example here. So if you buy in for $10 and you have 10 chips, each chip is worth $1. Where the other term that I mentioned, ICM, there's when the field starts to decrease and you're closer to the money, excuse me, or you're at the final table, each chip might not be worth $1 anymore. If you bought in for $10 and you have 10 chips, it might be worth $2 now because you're getting a greater portion. We won't be talking about ICM, but we will be talking about chip EV because these are going to be not to say that they're simpler solutions, but less advanced and easier to get post-flop information from in GTO Wizard. The last 2 is going to be your effective stack, the amount your stack is at risk. Easy way to put it is if your head's up, it's the smaller of the 2 stacks. So your small blind versus big blind, you have 10 big blinds and the big blind has 20 big blinds. The effective stack between the 2 is 10 big blinds. Remember that because I'm going to ask you guys, ladies, what the effective stack is when we're going through the exercises. And then range advantage. Range advantage is going to be which person at any given point in the hand over all of the hands that they will show up to that point has the better range, has more equity at that spot. So an example is you are under the gun and your opening range is going to be tight, right? So you open and big blind calls you, and big blind has a pretty wide range because they only have to invest 1 more big blind. Let's say the flop comes ace, king, queen. The range advantage is going to go to the under the gun player because they have a lot more aces, a lot more kings, a lot more queens because big blind only called and they have a distribution of their hands is a lot wider. So that's the quick rundown. And Raina asked, isn't chip EV related to the total price pool because part of your payment goes to the fee and rake? Yes, that's a great question, Raina. Let's pretend in this scenario there is no fees and rake. So in this scenario, you could have paid $12, and $10 goes to the prize pool. But yeah, thank you for asking that question. All right. And if there's anything I say, or I'm talking too fast, or I'm talking too slow, please let me know. I'm here for you all, and I want to make sure that you're all getting the best out of this that's available. All right, and I'm just sliding these over so I can see my notes. Okay, so why GTO Wizard? So even if you don't subscribe to GTO Wizard, and this is like the best kept secret, or and I have no idea how it's still a secret, is that you can go on gtowizard.com. I think it's .com actually. I should probably check that. I'll check it later. Yeah, gtowizard.com. Funny. And you can get chip EV solutions for pre-flop stuff all for free. So if you're not confident in your opening ranges, your 3-betting ranges, how often do you defend big blind? How often do you defend small blind? When do I jam or when do I squeeze? All of that stuff. And I like baffled that they could give this away for free because it's so valuable. A lot of the decisions that are going to be profitable decisions for you in your poker game are going to come from pre-flop decisions. And if they're just going to give you that information for free and people don't know that it's out there, that's going to make you have a better edge than a lot of your opponents. So if you're not already using GTO Wizard pre-flop, I highly recommend it. And I'll talk more about this in a little bit, but I'll hold on that actually. I'll hold. All right. So the second thing is it's very digestible, vast, quick, and reliable-ish solutions. Some of the other solvers that are out there, so Hold'em Resource Calculator, PioSolver, they take a lot of resources on your computer to run solutions, and they can take anywhere between 15 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, but up to potentially hours of your day. Where GTO Wizard, not sure how they do it because I haven't really studied the tech of it, but they've already pre-made all of the solutions that are available. The caveat is you have to make a lot of assumptions in GTO Wizard, so it's not perfect, and that's why I say reliable-ish. And also if you want to go post flop, you can only look at heads up, and you can only look at stack sizes that are equal. But that leads us into the next point of the reason I use it, and especially if it's free, is it's going to help you support the how to think through poker, how to learn patterns, how to identify situations that you're going to be in often, and give you more confidence to play that hand or that situation with the best knowledge that there is available in that moment. And that's going to also give you an edge in the game. Thank you, Nan. I appreciate you putting that in there. Yes, use GTO Wizard Trainer for free. Next is they have a drill and study material. So if you were just a lover of flashcards at any point in your life, they have a quick trainer where you just go through solutions. We'll go through it, but it shows a table, and you could say, I want to be cut off and I want to have 30 big blinds, and you can just keep going through 100 different spots of it until you feel really confident with that. That is a part of the premium package, so I think it's pay, but I do believe you get 5 free a day, so definitely worth trying. And then lastly, it's going to help you identify player skill types. This is something I didn't really realize getting into the Wizard that I would be getting. But I've started playing a lot more live poker over the last 6 months. And prior to using and getting my knowledge to where it is, I found it very difficult to identify other people's skill sets. I found that I always overestimated the players around me. I would look at them and think, wow, you're probably way better than me, and you like you're wearing a hoodie, and make all these assumptions. And then I would kind of level myself to think, I don't really want to get involved in this hand with this person because they're really good. But because I have built up and I've repeated these exercises through using GTO Wizard, I'm seeing so many mistakes that other people are making that I can quickly identify where are you lacking as at your villains. Sorry. Where are your villains' opportunity areas? And then it gives me an idea of how can I exploit them and who are going to be my targets, or who are the people that I'm going to attack in pots or want to be involved in. Because if I know what their weakness is, that's where the money comes from in poker. If you don't know their weakness, then how are you going to, exploit them and make money off of them? And the other thing I should have put on here is if you're ever like unsure of how often you should be betting, what flops to be betting, what turns to be betting, what size do I use, how much do I bet pre-flop, XYZ, GTO Wizard's going to give you the theory approved sizing, and you could work from there and then adapt as you get more experience. And I know a lot of you ladies have been playing for a long time, or some of you might be new, but it can give you some confidence in the decisions you're already making, which is what I really love. All right. Disclaimer, we don't play versus perfect opponents. I've already said this, but our goal in using this tool is to provide ourselves with a foundation to adapt from, not a rule book, but a guide to help you make the best possible decisions. I feel like I have to say that because when I started, I thought it was a rule book, not a profitable play. Like I said, you break equilibrium, you break even. When you're doing it, don't use it as a rule book. All right, now the fun part. We're going to go into different aspects of GTO Wizard. I have here the front landing page of the wizard. I've circled the things that we'll go through, some a little more than others, but just so you know, these are probably the meat and potatoes of what you will use. There is a lot of other information, but GTO Wizard does a really good job at marking what you can find there, so it's a lot less scary. All right, so we're gonna hop in there. Before I do, any questions? All right. So where to start? So I'm gonna start here first. I pulled these up from, actually go back to that main landing page that I just told you about. Oh, hold on one second. Let me pull this over. Sign back in. I don't know why I got locked out. Back at it. All right, main landing page. So here are the three that I told you about, and we're going to start at the Help Center. So because this is a beginner tutorial, very important. If you don't know what you're doing, go to the Help Center. We're women. We use instructions. That's like one of the things we're really good at. And click study, click practice. Figure if you click on either of these things, it really breaks down in layman's terms, how do I use each part of this? So how do I navigate the study panel? So the study panel, if we go back, is this one. So it's going to show you how do I navigate, how do I pick a flop, what do these different things mean? And we'll go through some of this in more detail, but I just want to show you that it is here. And then there's another resource that Nan's going to provide, and this is called How to Become a GTO Wizard. And it's going to talk a lot about the same things, like how to study. I have some of these in the PowerPoint that I'll share, tips for studying, and then some other things and how to interpret graphs and stuff that they're providing. And lastly, before we really get into it, is if you have never used GTO Wizard or like one of these pages before, the really nice thing about this tool is it gives you a tutorial when you're using it. So it gives you really just ABC instruction on, hey, this is how you build a range, and here's all the things you could do. So I just want to make sure y'all are aware, like it's a tool that's very user friendly. And I know tools can be scary to learn, but it's probably one of the easier ones to jump into. All right, so study. How this is going to go is I am going to show you how to navigate the pre-flop parts. Then I'm going to pop up a prior hand that I had. And we're going to walk through the hand that I had and how I think through it. And we'll start with just a pre-flop hand, and then we'll go through a more complicated post-flop hand and all the things I look at. And there's going to be a lot more things that you could look at. But when you're first getting started out, less information is better. Keep it simple. All right, so when you click study, this is going to be the screen that it gives you. It probably won't give you this, so it'll probably just have everybody folding up here. But we'll start with this top panel. The top panel is going to give you your actions based on the seat positions. GTO Wizard post flop, like I said, is only going to allow you to go post flop if you have symmetrical stacks. So first in the top right corner is the effective stack of the hand that you're running. Then on the top left corner is going to be the seat position. And then the actions that GTO Wizard says, here's our theory approved sizings or actions that we're going to say. The limitation it has is if you're playing live or you're playing in a league game online or any game, people limp. Like you see people limp all the time, and GTO Wizard doesn't allow you to do limping because it makes the computation a lot more complicated. So you have to sometimes make your own adjustments to the ranges, but that's kind of what the fun is in using the tool, because you have to think when using it. It's not just going to spoon feed you most of the time. All right, so that's this part. Over to the left, though, is, what if we're not playing 60 big blinds? So we're going to go over here. We're going to click this, and it's going to open an option menu. There are different subscriptions you could have. You could have a cash game subscription, MTT. Don't ask me what a spin and go is, and then a heads up sit and go, so heads up game. But those are different premium packages you could buy. And then you could pick different formats. Like I said, we're going to do chip EV. That is the one you could see post-flop solutions with. You can change the number of players. Anything outside of 8 players, you cannot see post-flop, but it's really good to be able to see, 6 players if you're doing a 6 max, just to hone those pre-flop skills. And then I want to see post-flop included. All right, so I'm gonna go side by side, and this is what I do in when I'm studying, is I'll pop up my hand. I will make this the other side of my screen, and I'll probably make the hand a little smaller. So I know it's probably a little hard for people to see, but I want people to see the wizard a little more. So maybe that big. Can you all see this side of the screen?
Yes.
The stack sizes? Okay. So we're going to go through this hand, and I will narrate. So what position we're on? Button, cutoff, hijack, LoJack, MP. MP opens off 47 big blinds, and it folds to me in the cutoff with 24 big blinds. So this is chip EV, so very early in the tournament. And my question is, what do I do here? Do I fold? Do I call? Do I raise? Do I jam? And so my question for you all is in the chat. What is the effective stack at this moment in time? Approximately.
Your stack, which is 23,
Why is that, Nan?
because you're the shorter stack in comparison to the opening.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're looking at GTO Wizard, you're going to want to pick the effective stack when you're doing exercises or you're looking at spots to start. So it doesn't have exactly 23, so I'm going to pick 20 big blinds. Close enough. It will give you essentially the same thing. We will look at 25 too, and we'll look at different stack sizes just so I know what do I do at different stack sizes in this situation. So we picked 20 big blinds and it's 8-handed. So in this scenario, it's going, well, this is technically 9-handed. So let me do 9-handed because we're pre-flop, so we could do 9-handed. All right, so you have different options. So when you do different things, you get different results. So because we're only looking at pre-flop, it actually gives you the flexibility to see a bunch of different options and you can scroll through. I like to look at, if I'm in the cutoff, we won't do this completely right now, but I like to look for my stack in the cutoff, and this is going to give you your average over here. So I like to find a solution similar, but for the purpose of this, I'm just going to try to find a symmetric stack that's close. And look at that, we have a 23 big blind. All right, so we are under the gun 2 is the one that opens. So you click it and you click raise 2. That's how many big blinds they raised. All right, and then it folds to me in the cutoff. So before I do my action in the cutoff, what do you think I do here? Put it in the chat.
With that specific hand,
Yeah,
and that is King of Clubs, Queen of Clubs, is that right? It's a little small on my screen.
King of Spades, Queen of Spades, but same thing.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking raise.
All right, to what amount?
5 maybe.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm not moving on until at least 2 more people give me an answer. So put it on y'all.
Well, you can either call but then the other people might come in, or you can jam and just, but because you have 20 big blinds as a jam stack. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Yeah. All right. Raise 2. All right. I love it. I love how I threatened y'all and now you're all coming. I love it. You guys work with threats. Now I know. Yeah, so but when I'm studying, I always ask myself that. So I weigh, okay, what happens if I call, right? So if I call here, the good things about calling is I'm in position on this player. It does give these other players though an opportunity to jam. Or it does give the button an opportunity to call too. And now I have to go 3 ways post flop. My goal as a poker player is to minimize my decisions, make my life easy. So the less people that are in the pot, the better. I'm always trying to get it heads up for the most part, especially when I'm at 20 big blinds deep. So my hypothesis here, and this is what I would ask you to do, is make your theories known before you click through it, is I think I'm gonna raise. I think there probably is some calling, right? I don't think it's 100% raise, but I also think this is a really good candidate to jam, like Ava was just saying. All right. And then before I click on mine, I just want to look at what is the GTO Wizard saying this person is supposed to raise here. So let's just look at it. So what I do when I'm looking, and I'll just give you a quick rundown if you haven't really seen ranges before or a range chart like this. This has all of the combos of hands that you can have in a poker hand, in a Texas Hold'em poker hand. Oh, I just want to add, Tara said if my stack was slightly smaller, I would jam, but here I 3-bet to 6-ish. I like it. All right. It has all the combos of poker hands that you're going to have. And how it breaks it up is you have your middle line. This is going to be all of your pairs. To the right of this middle diagonal line is going to be all of your suited combinations. So right from down here, 3-2 suited. And you'll see when I hover over it, it's going to have to the right all the different suits. So that's how it kind of has every single hand, is it condenses it into one combination, 3-2 suited. Because at this moment in time, pre-flop, doesn't really matter if you have hearts, spades, diamonds, or clubs. They all perform the same. All the way up to ace king suited in this top left corner, ace 2 suited over here. And then on the bottom left quadrant, so this bottom diagonal is going to be all of your offsuit combos. Question for y'all. And I don't want Nan, Naomi, or Cindy answering this. Is how many combos of suited cards are there? And how many combos of offsuit cards are there usually? Or all the time? Pre-flop. So I'll give a quick, how many ace king suiteds are there and how many ace king offsuits are there? Ace king suited 4. 4 and 12. Seems like a winner. All right, and how can we determine that? Well, we can hover over ace king O. Yeah, love it. So now we hovered over ace king offsuit, and in the bottom right corner, if I click it, I think it should stay. Bottom right corner, it shows every single combination of ace king offsuit, which is awesome. And it shows the expected value of each of the actions that Under the Gun is taking with ace king offsuit. So if I hover over one of them, it's saying, hey, if ace king offsuit folds, they have 0 expected value. They're going to make 0 big blinds, and that makes sense. But if they raise, they're actually going to make 2.64. It's relative depending on what it is, but I think it's 264 big blinds per 100 is what that means. If they raise or go all in with this particular hand, because it's so strong. But how I like to look at it is not so much like that, but more so which is the best option. So raising 2 big blinds from UTG2 is going to yield you 2.64, where going all in is going to yield you 2.51. So obviously the best option is going to be 2.64. So you want to go with the highest expected value. Versus if they were to open 7-2 offsuit, like the example we were giving, look how many big blinds we lose. Not surprising. All right. The fact that I'm laughing at this means I am a poker nerd, and I accept that. All right. So UTG2 back on track. Raises. Like I said, I asked myself, is this the range that I expect my Under the Gun to, so that particular player type, to open? And I might say,
Question.
yeah, sure.
Okay, so each of those boxes has a number in it. Is
Mhm.
that the expected value for all 4 of the combinations? What is
Yeah.
that number?
Yep. It will be the average over all of those combinations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. All right. So if I think this is the appropriate range, then I actually will probably trust the GTO Wizard's output for what I should do in the cutoff when it gets to me. But if I think I don't really think they're opening King 7 suited or pocket fives or queen 10 off. And if that's that, then in my head, when I go to my solution, I'm going to actually take that into consideration. I'll kind of make my decisions a little different from what the outputs are saying comparative to what they're doing. As I was doing that, I realized that I didn't talk about this is things are going to be color coded based on the actions. So you can change your colors, which is really cool depending on what you feel best. But there should be like a little legend over here explaining what the colors mean. And you'll notice that some of them only have a fraction. So like queen 10 offsuit, it says like approximately like 90% fold. So 90% blue and 10% raise two. So those are going to be hands that are very close in expected value. So if you hover over, you see that fold is 0 and raise 2 is 0. So you could take it or leave it, essentially. When you're starting out and you're really developing your ranges, I recommend maybe making this a little tighter. Maybe leave out some of these mixed hands until you feel more confident playing them post flop. All right. Got sideline. So back at it. So cutoff. What do we do with king, queen suited? All right. When we're at 23 big blinds and we're 9-handed, we call. But there is a 10% that we jam it. So it's pretty surprising, right? A lot of people here said, I want to raise this hand. Any thoughts on why we might not want to raise or why it's leaning more towards calling?
Because you want to see a flop with that and you're in position, you just got one more person to go, and suited card's going to play well post flop.
I like that.
It's too good of a card, too good of a hand to jam.
Okay, I like that. Ginger says small stack, realize equity. Love that. So you have a really like kind of leaning onto what Naomi's saying is this is a great post flop hand. So there's no reason and it's a good multi-way hand where if you compare it to ace king offsuit, so this is whatever point we're on, point that. When I'm looking at my particular hand, I'm not looking at my hand actually. I'm looking at what do I do with my whole range of hands? What am I supposed to do with Jack 4 suited here? Well, pretty easy, right? Jack 4 suited is pretty trash. I'm going to let it go. But what do I do with ace king offsuit? You know, if you were to ask me, I actually probably would have told you that I'm supposed to raise it to 6 big blinds because it's such a good hand. I don't mind if somebody goes all in, but this is saying that I need to jam. So it's really important that when you use this tool, you don't just look at your hand because the chances of that one hand coming up again are pretty slim. Like the odds of under the gun 2 raising and you having exactly king queen suited in the cutoff off 23 big blinds isn't going to happen at a very high frequency. So if you're going to be in here and you're going to spend the time, take the time to get as much information as possible and look at the whole range of hands. Question, do I do that today? Am I jamming pocket 9s here? Am I folding pocket 3s? Because I know I can be guilty of trying to set mine pocket 3s, even off something as small of a stack as that, because I love sets. So, and then you could also look at what hands do I raise and ask yourself, why do I raise those hands? Just like Naomi answered with king, queen suited. How do you answer? So if you don't know the answer, how do I answer? So what I do is if I force the decision to a call and I come up with hypotheses on why is it calling. So how do I do that? Well, I look at what are the actions the people behind me are supposed to take. Supposed to, theory. Do they do that? Do they not? Very important on our decisions because if they're not going to do what the wizard tells us they're going to do, we need to adapt. That's why it's a baseline, not the rule book. So if I call king, queen off and button is supposed to jam these combos, well, You got me. I don't see many people at these $11 games or $200 games or $400 games in real life jamming king 10 suited a lot of times. But let's just say that they did. Then what do we do? So let's say they go all in with it. And then I say, you know, under the gun 2 folds. Now what do I do at king queen? Because I have no idea. Well, we're supposed to call. So that's probably why, or that could be a data point on why you might want to call king queen suited, is because it's so good that we don't mind inducing somebody to squeeze behind us. So seeing what happens, what the range is that is opening, seeing what the ranges are that are left to act, seeing how we interact with all of those ranges is how you start thinking about poker. All right, so any questions from there? I know that was a lot and very, very meaty information.
Can you force the race? I just would like to see the path because you know, you started with, we like to make our decisions easier.
Yeah.
Just calling allows the blind to come in, and then, you know, you have a multi-way pot.
Yep.
Just
Thank you,
curious.
man. Yeah, and that's what I do is, you know, when you look at king queen suited, it and you look at the EV of it, raising is also positive EV. So if you feel more comfortable taking that route, you're not losing money. You're still making money. It just might be a little less money than the other options in the scenario. So I love what Nan said because that's exactly what I do is I try all the routes. So if I raise, then what happens? And I love the word Nan used was path because that's what it is. You're creating a new path or a new dimension, I guess, of what the reality is happening. So then you can look, okay, if I raise, this is how button responds. So button's only supposed to jam these. That feels right. What does small blind do? What does big blind do? And the person we really care about the most who opened, who has the tightest range, is under the gun. What did they do? So, sorry. So by us raising 5.5, which is the size that GTO Wizard is recommending. So I think 6 big blinds was the number that was thrown out here. Really close. I wouldn't fret being off a half a big blind or even a big blind. Getting in the ballpark is tough work. So kudos for that. And then I see what the under the gun 2 ranges is and what their actions are going to be. And again, I question, are they actually doing this? What I see in real poker, and it's probably deviating a little bit, is when people raise, especially in the live game, people don't like folding. So sometimes I'm either adding, calling hands like queen 8 suited, or detracting them. But what did I do? I jammed. So it's acceptable, right? I'm making EV on doing that. I want to see if I do jam, how does the under the gun 2 player respond? What are they calling with? Am I getting better hands to fold? And am I getting no, I guess that's the question. Am I getting better hands to fold? And if you look at it, by jamming king queen suited, I'm getting all of these aces to fold. And now how beautiful is that, right? Like if I can get an ace to fold out, which is obviously a better hand than king queen here, that's a win to me. But you have to ask yourself, are your opponents going to fold? Back to that statement that I made earlier on confidence. A lot of times we'll put monsters under the bed in our opponent's range. We say, well, the flush got there, and obviously he has a flush. And by doing these iterations and repetition, it really gives you that confidence to make the best decision at that time, and also helps you realize that there's a lot of bluff lines or a lot of value hands that people will go for and bet that don't necessarily need to be those monsters under the bed. So that's another reason I encourage you to use this. All right. And then second, I just want to go through a post flop hand with you. I wanted to start there just because it was pretty easy, got you familiar with the navigation. So how do we restart? I'm sure there's a much easier way than this, but usually I just click the first one, and I just fold it, and then it restarts the whole line again.
You have to
So
go to eight players though.
thank you. I really appreciate that. 8 players.
Now, what did you
All right,
click
8
on to
players.
get to there?
Sure. So if you click on this panel right here,
Okay.
so this will give you all your options. So this is where you will change your effective stack, if you want to see ICM or Chippy V, and how many players. So 8's great because that's our post flop. So I'm glad you're on top of it. All right. So early game, we're all pretty deep. And first we'll start here. So what's the effective stack I should pick?
Can you read those things a little? Oh, thank you.
Ah.
You're welcome. Love it. 68.
Yep.
So let's round up to 70.
Mika, can I ask a kind of a little bit unrelated question?
Yeah, sure.
Like I see you have this on global. When you go to study, or when you're playing on global, do
Mhm.
you simply save every hand? Do you go through a whole tournament? How did you pick this particular hand that you knew you were going to pull up and look at?
Yeah, so sometimes I will go through total hand histories in global. It's not easy. But typically what I do is I'll pop out the hand while I'm playing, and I'll just have a whole web browser, kind of like I do up here, but they're just all global hands.
Oh,
And then
you can do that while you're playing?
yeah, so if you click on the chat button, I don't think I could show you. Oh yeah, I can. You click on the chat button under here, the dealer, it will give you the hand number. And if you click on it, it will actually pop out a URL. And if you
Oh.
double click the URL, it will just pop out into a tab.
Oh, that's
Highly
magnificent.
recommend.
Oh, that's a game changer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's just if you're playing multiple tables, sometimes you get lazy. Try to save as many hands as possible though, because it's much easier that way than going back and looking at the global interface. All right, so post swap's going to get a little more complicated. So I'm going to introduce some more things that GTO Wizard shows. So if I'm asking you all to be really transparent with me, if there's anything that you didn't understand pre-flop and you just wanted me to talk about it for like 2 extra seconds, let me know now, because I don't want to build on top of a rickety foundation.
You didn't really mention the color coded boxes on the right. They also include the percent of time that you're folding, the percent of time that you're raising, etc.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so that's a great point. So let me just do this just for simplicity, just so we can see. All
So
right.
can I ask, is this tool for online playing? Like, I'm a live player, so can I think of copy the hands that I want to then put into GTO Wizard later on in the day?
For sure
Because,
you can. Yeah.
okay,
So
because-
if you're a live player, and I'm a live player too, is I try to notate my hands while I'm playing.
Right.
Or, on break if I can remember them. And you try to take the information you need. So what do you need? You need the effective stack. You need what hands you had, if there was any showdown, and what the actions were. So how much were they betting on pre-flop, post-flop, etc. And then when
okay.
you get home, you can actually just click these to set up that exact situation. And then you could say like, hey, what was his range or her range, and what was my range? Great
Right.
question.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
But you're doing it now because you're playing online. These are from your online hands it's easier, I guess, to work with a GTO Wizard when you're playing online.
Um, it's just as easy to do
Yeah.
it from live. The reason I'm showing this online is so you as the user get to visualize the table.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see if I have it open. Oh, I don't know because I have something else open. I was gonna share like in my my texting app that I use. So I use Discord as a texting app. I just send my hands to myself that I play live. Or I send them to my study group. So then the next time we meet, we can just go over them and talk through them while we're
Right.
meeting together.
Right, because these hands now could actually be a live hand that you just plugged into the Discord.
100%. Yeah.
Right,
Yep.
right, I got it.
Exactly.
But for you to be texting yourself off of Discord, I mean, you are really proficient in all this technology, and you know how to use these apps thoroughly. So, I'm sure it's easy for you. For me, it would be a big learning experience to, be able to be as comfortable. But
Yeah.
I'm
It,
glad
And
you-
I'm sorry,
uh,
who is asking the question? Just wanna, I'm curious.
Barbara.
Oh, Barbara. Okay, I'm 60. If grandma can do it, you can too. Part of the things that we are doing, we urge the women to just stop the block of it's hard. You're only going to become better if you actually try.
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely. I'm
it's
not
just
saying that
curious.
I can't do it, but it is time consuming and it is
Oh,
um
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's all. I was just wondering how she, was so easily
Uh-huh.
accessible to the GTO Wizard, but
Oh,
she
Yeah,
Barbara, I'm
okay.
57, so
I'm
I'm
70.
yeah, I'm
exactly.
closer to Nan.
Age has
But if
nothing to do
you
with this though.
but right, but if you have a cell phone, even if you have a voice recorder on it, you can walk away from the table and just restate your hand.
Absolutely,
Love
right.
that. That's great.
Brilliant. And that's a great advice. Voice recording is great.
Yes. Listen, where there's a will, there's a way. So I get
That's true. And Barbara, I really appreciate you saying that I'm tech savvy because
it.
I didn't even know what Discord was 2 years ago. So
Hey, I'm just now finding my way around Discord, and it's not easy. It's if you have a busy life outside of poker, then to try to really maximize poker, it is time consuming. So you have to focus. But Discord is not so easy.
yeah. Yeah. It's just like
Okay.
with anything else, right? Repetition, repetition,
Yeah,
repetition. Then it
exactly,
gets
exactly.
easy.
Practice exactly. Eventually, the
Yeah.
more you look at it, the easier it becomes. Okay, I didn't mean
Okay.
to
You're good.
interrupt you.
No,
You're
but
good.
here's my question, because since Miko brought it up, how do you send yourself a message on Discord?
Tara.
Because I'm
See
looking at
that? Okay, good.
you brought it. I didn't know you could do that, so I just wanted to know how do you do
Yeah,
that?
it's I create a server actually. So it's my own
Oh,
server dedicated to
okay.
myself.
Okay.
And I just send it in there.
Okay,
Okay.
got it. Thank you.
I think the
All
voice
right.
recorder idea is the best. Like for me, that's genius. Walk away, talk about the hand, and then later on
Yep.
plug it into the GTO Wizard.
Whatever works for you is great.
Right.
And I think the most important thing that relates to GTO Wizard is knowing what to log because there's so much information that you could log and there's so much information that you could forget to log. And hopefully going through this post-flop example, we'll be able to talk about more of that information that you need to log to make the most use out of it. And it won't be the first time that you're going to get it right, but hopefully after a couple iterations, you'll start to learn like, ah, crap, I forgot what cutoff stack was, or I forgot what was the turn. I don't know. And I still forget. Because like if you don't write the hand down right away, you're gonna forget. All right. Back to the point about the percentages, and there's so much here that I could talk about that I'm kind of opting out of because there's a lot. Is okay, so this legend that I mentioned, I love that you told hey, there's percentages here. So this is gonna tell you like what percent of my overall range. So if under the gun opens and I'm under the gun 1, what percent of my overall range am I taking these different actions with? So I'm folding 90% of the time. That probably shouldn't, and I always round up just for simplicity. I don't need to know 87.4% of the time. I'm just going to say I'm folding about 90%. And then what am I doing the rest of the time? I'm calling about 8% and I'm raising whatever the remainder is. And then you could see, okay, if I do raise, it's telling me I need to raise 7.5 big blinds. And then the other thing, just to get your brain in the mindset of how many hands there are in each of these things, is in the bottom right corner. It's going to tell you how many combos there are of in each of these buckets. So folding 90% means I'm folding 1,158 hands. different
Wow.
types of combos, right?
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. So 90% of the time you're folding the spot, and that's okay. Like even if it means, your perception is that I think you're in it, that's what you're supposed to do. Versus under the gun in the spot. But if we're to go to big blind, I'm positive it's going to be a much different picture. So let's see what it says if we're in big blind, what you should do. All right, now we're only folding 50% of the time, and we're about calling 45 and raising 6. So now we're only folding 640 combos, which is still a lot, but we're actively involved with the other half. So I love this because it gives me confidence again in what should I be, like big blind is one of the spots we're in the most, and we're out of position. So knowing what to do when we're in this position is really important. All right, so back to this hand. Thank you for bringing that up. And if anybody else had anything else they saw that, they weren't sure of at that second. But again, 68 bigs, 70. We only have 60 and 80 bigs. So in real life, what I do is, and we won't do it here because of time, is anytime I'm in a spot, typically I'm going to run through the spot effective stack that I'm at, but also I want to look at other common stack sizes that could exist or could occur. So I'm at 60 big blinds now. I will round up to 80 just because I think that's good. But I also want to know, what do I do at 50 big blinds in this spot? And I also want to know, what do I do at 30 and 17? So I might spend, 30 minutes to 45 minutes just on one single hand to make sure that I'm looking at it 360. So I know, am I looking at different effective sizes? Am I looking at different positions on how to play? Am I looking at ranges and not just hands? All right, so this
Can I
hand.
reiterate something that maybe it's just stupid and it should have been obvious to me?
No, go ahead.
So in GTO Wizard, and again, I have it, but I haven't really played with it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not actually putting in your hands as opposed to some of the other like solvers or trainers, right? You're just putting in actions and then looking at what there's nowhere you're putting in. I mean, specific hands, you can click on them and hover, but right? It's
Yeah. Yep. Spot on. Yep.
And there are
So
other tools though where you could actually put in.
yeah, if you wanted to see just specific equities, right? So Equilab or Hold'em calculator,
Okay.
you could type in your hand versus like a range of hands, and you could see the equity of your hand versus all of the other hands, which is another tool you should use, especially if you want like a in the moment kind of thing. But yeah, so here the way to see your hand is just to hover over it, and then that's how. And that's kind of why I keep saying you're really focused on the range of hands, not just your hand, because that's how it shows it. Great question. All right. So we won't spend too much time here because we just did it, but cut off hijack, low jack. So low jack opens and we are in the hijack. I'm questioning, what do I do with ace 5 here? Well, if I know anything from Landon Tice, he probably wants me to raise it because ace 5 is essentially aces, but knowing I didn't, I probably flatted. So mistake number 1, but look at that. We could raise and we can call. So I flatted and everybody else folds, and that's the flop we get. So let's go post flop. So I call, right? And let's look at the rest of the range. I'm going to practice what I preach. So what do you notice about this range? What do you see?
A lot of mixing.
Love that. Yep, great answer. What's that mean, Ava?
All you can have a choice of raising or calling with almost every hand in the except for the small pairs.
And why do you think that is?
Because it can go either way, because it's indifferent. It can go either way. In terms
So
of
the expected
profitability.
values are probably pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that. All right. Any patterns you see?
I mean, I can keep talking. I mean, I see a lot more red in the top left corner,
Yeah.
and more passive on the bottom small pairs as you go down the pairs.
Yep. Good point. Anybody else see anything?
Suited aces, but not so much unsuited aces.
Yep. And then you'll ask yourself while you're playing, why is that? And try to come up with some ideas of why that is. And it could be, offsuit aces don't play well post flop, and especially if we're just going to call, especially versus the range that's opening. So we could look at the low jack range that's opening and see, what's the worst hand low jack's opening? Well, ace 10 offsuit. If that's the worst ace that low jack's opening, why would I want to be involved with any worse hand than that? Right? So the other thing is it's a very linear.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very linear. And what does that mean? Linear.
Well, I mean, I can answer it in the sense that it's all like the hands that have value. I mean, not much like not pol. I mean, polar is the opposite. I think meaning there's like a lot of bluffs in the hand that are raise folds or call. I mean, if you have a raise fold, yeah. So like your offsuit hands, the offsuit region in the bottom left, there's hardly any hands in there. So it's all hands that have, I would say, more value. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. So it's pretty standard, right? Like there's no fancy play really that's going on here. Maybe a little fancy play with, raising king 9 suited, queen 9 suited, but I could see merit in that because they play well post flop. We're really deep, and you can get better hands to fold like we just saw on the prior hand. You can get ace 5, ace 4 to fold. So yeah, I like that. So no real surprises. And let's go to the flop. So we get everybody to fold. Let's make sure big blind folds here. And I do like looking at the different ranges from the other ones, but if I'm in a hurry, I'll admit that sometimes I skip through that. All right, so this box pops up. This box is for you to pick your flop cards. And it's really easy. It has your spades, your hearts, your diamonds, and your clubs. And you could also click this little button and it does a random flop for you. So if you just want to, Russian roulette it, see what can happen on a random board, more power to you. We'll go a little bit into how do you see all boards in a minute because that's pretty important too. Like how to play something post flop. All right, so 10-7-3, that's this board. And if I'm looking here, we got 6.5 big blinds in the pot. Here it says we have 7 big blinds. If you look above the flop, it says 7.1. And then this is how many big blinds the low jack and hijack has behind. So close enough. And this is going to be your range that low jack, our villain, should be betting. So a lot of checks. 65% of the time, the low jack is checking. I don't want this view. All right, there we go. That's good. 65% of the time, low jack's checking. 33% of the time, they're going to bet, but they're only going to bet 33% a pot or 2.35 big blinds. And there's really no big sizes. And what I really love about GTO Wizard is it breaks it down into these types of hands. So what is the composition of the low jack's range? Well, 3.2% of the time they have sets. That's not very much. Top pair is pretty meaty. Ace high is really meaty, 27% of the time. And then a lot of times they don't have a main hand. So this really helps you identify like more of and then I'll go down here actually before I start that tangent. So it breaks it down into best hands. So highest equity hands, the hands that are going to win the pot. Maybe I think there's a definition, but for simplicity, I'm just going to say greater than 75% of the time. Best hands, good hands is going to be 50 to 75. Weak hands is going to be maybe 25 to 50, and trash hands 0 to 25. So if you look at the low jack range, their percent chance to win the pot, it's actually not very good, right? If you were to add up these, the trash hand and weak hands actually make up a bigger percent than their best hands. So that's where that term range advantage comes in. We, as the hijack, as the overcaller, actually have a better possibility of winning the flop most of the time when you compare our ranges, because we have a tighter range. All right, so, and then you can look at different ways to slice and dice it. So combo draws, flush draws, and this is fun. I'm sure all of you have worked with filters or have seen them, but you can click it and it will pop out just those particular hands. So if you want to see what those no-made hands consist of, that's LoJack's no-made hands and what they're supposed to do with them. Best hands, let's click it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, makes sense. Sets, 3s, 7s, 10s, and then overpairs. And then top pair, top kicker. And that's going to all be under this filters tab here. And you got different tabs. So you got your summary view. We won't do that right now. The hand view that you're all familiar with that we already went through. There's a lot of information here. I would just focus on the sizings, the bet sizings, and the expected value. For right now, I would not look at these two. These are going to talk more about blockers, which is going to be a more advanced thing to talk about. But if you are at that stage, you could just click because they have a hyperlink to tell you more about it. All right, so LoJack, what did the LoJack do here? LoJack checked, so we'll force them to check. I think I still have a filter in place. And what am I supposed to do? Let's undo this. So if you just double click whatever you clicked, now it's going to tell you what do I do. And it might surprise you. It certainly surprises me. I don't have anything. I have ace high. I do have backdoor hearts, which is really nice. And I do have some, backdoor straight draws. But it wants me to bet at a pretty high frequency, but a small frequency. So the reason this is so good is because a lot of times we get ourselves involved pre-flop and we have no idea what to do post-flop. Pre-flops can be easy, especially if you study the pre-flop ranges. But post-flop, because there's so many different combinations, pre-flop, and then you add in all the combinations post-flop, it gets really tricky to understand what to do. So by doing these iteratively, it really helps you. The other thing I'll add is GTO Wizard has this beautiful, beautiful way to view things. I think it is under reports. Is it under reports or breakdown? Let's see. And so it's just a lot of button clicking. Like if you just click around, you'll get answers. All right. So, 10, 7, 3, 2 diamonds and a heart, unlikely to happen very often, right? With you holding ace 5 of hearts and you flatted when blah, 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 blah. So this is going to tell you, what do I do on most boards? So ignore this little thing for now. This is going to tell you every single board that is possible right here on this flops. So 100% of boards that can happen. I am not privy at this moment to how many flops there are. I'm sure there is a genius in here that knows that and how many turn combinations. But trust me when I say every single combination is there. And then it will tell you how often do I check on every single combination. So LoJack versus hijack. Hijack is going to check 50% of the time, every combination of flops. So just knowing this base level of, hey, if I go post flop with this, what do I do most of the time? You could follow these heuristics for now, until you get to that next level. It's kind of like in school, we had math 101, math 102, math 103. Start at the math 101, right? Make your life as easy as possible. And then once you feel really secure with those decisions, learn a little more. Get a math 102 involved in your life. And the cool thing is you could say, okay, well, 50% of the hands, that's pretty ambiguous. What do I do? So you could filter on check. And it will show you the hands that you mostly check with. And I believe over here, yeah, you could actually filter on rainbow, flush draws, monotones, not paired. So we have all these options that you could actually hone down even deeper. But right off the bat, the hands I'm checking with, monotone boards, 3 hearts, lots of hearts, and it's they're just doing hearts, right? It's any suit. So 3 of 1 suit is what they're representing when they say 3 hearts. And my other option, it looks like, is 31% of the time I'm gonna bet 2.5 big blinds, 2.35 big blinds. So what do I do there? And we're gonna do it a lot on these boards. And when you're going through it, you ask yourself, why do I do this with my whole range of hands? It's not even saying you're doing it with ace 5. It's saying you could have any 2 cards that you called pre-flop with, and now you made it to this flop versus low jack. This is what you do with most of your hands. All right. I know, very, very complex, a lot of information, but I just wanted to be able to hit from beginners to people who have already seen it and give them an extra tool. I love your cat, Naomi. That is adorable. I want to pet it. Anyways,
Thank you.
You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate that. That's really
You're
nice.
welcome.
It's nice to get feedback when you're in the middle of something like this.
Yeah, 'cause
So
this is complicated for me. It's a lot of information and I'm not familiar with it, but you're really explaining it very well.
thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
just would like you to come to my house and like sit beside me for 8 hours.
Vegas,
Exactly.
Vegas. I'll be in Vegas.
You'll be busy in Vegas. You'll be busy.
I still gotta study.
Okay.
Hold me to it.
And is all this stuff that you're showing us and looking at, for example, is this stuff on the paid GTO? Is it on the free? Like, what's the, like, I have Elite. I don't even know what that means. What's the difference?
Lucky you.
It's probably wasted on me, to be honest. I have no idea.
Okay, let me just jump. The reason why we're having this lesson is because we know that many people that got the subscriptions are clueless. They cannot start. Mika is an angel. And I know that when people were looking at the lessons, they were faking understanding. There were so many little bits that you got today. Okay, you have the Cadillac of GTO Wizard. Make us proud, Naomi.
I will, but what's the difference? Like, what do you have, Mika? What are you showing us?
Yeah, so I think a GTO subscriptions is 3 different things, and I'll just talk about tournament
Levels.
GTO. Yeah, so you have your free version. That's going to get you all of your pre-flop ranges for chip EV solutions. Then you have your premium. Premium is going to give you your post-flop solutions for the chip EV, and also give you some pre-flop ICM stuff. And then your elite is actually going to give you node blocking. So you could actually put in ranges that, so, how I've been saying, do I think my opponent's going to do this and how would I adjust? Well, you could actually adjust your opponent's range and see how it actually adjusts. So premium is going to give you the Nash equilibrium. The elite is going to give you more of the how do I play versus particular opponents.
What do you use?
I use premium. There's so much information here and I'm getting so much value from it that at this moment in time, I'm getting close to that part though in my study where I think I need to invest in something more. But there's so much information that like this has kept me busy for 2 years.
Wow.
Mhm.
In addition, we are talking about preloaded solutions from what's it, the tool? As opposed to rules that got acquired, and you are getting the AI generated, solutions. That's the reason you have dynamic sizing, and you have more of the flexibility.
Yeah.
But again, it's much more than you can handle right now. But that's good. Make us proud.
You're already making us proud, Naomi. Don't worry.
Can I ask another? On average, like how much time do you spend on a hand? Like this hand right here that you have up here, like
You said up to 45 minutes you could spend on a hand.
Yeah, yeah, I could spend that long. There are some times
long
like that
time.
king queen suited hand, right? Like I could spend 10 minutes on, just move on, maybe 5 minutes. I typically when I study, a lot of times it's with my study group. And Ginger here, actually, she's part of my study group. I asked her to come today. We are talkers, and we all have different perspectives, which is really good because there's things that when I'm talking through something, they will point out, and then we'll have to go back and backtrack and see like, okay, well, what if we did this? So I think the max amount of time we've ever spent on a hand was like an hour and 15 minutes. Um, but like we ended up, and it's not a hand, right? It's a spot. That's how I should refer to it.
But that's when you have multiple people with opinions on the hand, right? And
Yeah, yep.
questioning. So yeah, so that could definitely elongate the time.
Multiple hypothesis. Now if you have that node locking feature that Naomi has, though, you could probably in reality spend a long time because now you're typing in different sizing, you're changing the ranges, and you're spending a lot more time on things.
Do
That's
you
why I
ever
haven't
really?
really go
I'm
on.
sorry.
No, you're good.
No, I was going to say, but there's so many variables. Do you ever really get to a point where you're like, ah, yes, that I can use that? That it's just there's a lot of variables.
There's a lot of variables, and that's probably why a lot of us love poker so much, is
Well,
there's so much to it. Like we'll never be able to really solve it, but
right.
we can identify patterns to make our life easier. So
Yes.
it's not about memorizing, and that's why I asked, and I love Ava's response on what patterns do you see? Because when you're looking at it, that's the questions you want to ask yourself is what patterns do I see? Because those are patterns that I want to make sure that I'm identifying when I play in a live environment or in my next game. So next time I see a monotone flop or like three spades come, I know I'm probably going to go check a lot, and I'm not going to bet it. So just creating those patterns are also known as heuristics. If you hear that word, that also means patterns.
Right.
But I'm not going to go too much further in the wizard, but I will just complete this hand. So just so you're aware of, what happened. So I checked. The turn was beautiful. It gave me another heart. That person checks. So we can enter in exactly my actions. We could enter in the turn card, which is really cool. So 3 of hearts. There's also this button that already disappeared. I'll just pop it up for people who are a little more experienced. It's called turns. Same with the flops, how we saw the aggregated reports. Turns pops up. I don't love it so much. It's not my favorite visual that ever existed.
Mhm.
Oh, it might not even work right now. Oh, they changed it. Oh, no, they didn't. Yeah, it's not my favorite visual, but it says, hey, if any of these turn cards come, here's the actions. If you look up here, any of these, they're all mixed. Like you could really do anything depending on what happens. But that's why it's not my favorite. I don't feel like it gives a super clear picture, but it can help you say like on the flop, if I'm gonna check, I already know what I'm gonna do on the turn. So it's like chess. Plan out 4 steps ahead, not just the current step that you're on.
Right.
All right, so back to, and you'll see these tabs. This is what keeps changing the view are these tabs. So I like to live in the strategy tab most of the time. That's this chart. All right, and what did I do? I bet, and I bet small. I don't recommend that. Oh, okay, just kidding. So with my particular hand, you could really do anything and there's no wrong answer. And I love to see that, right? And that just means like anything you do can be justified because the expected value of doing that action is the same. But if you're playing live, you have so much more information, you know your players. That's what can help you make better decisions. Like if you know this
Right.
person's going to overfold, bet. That's
Right.
where more of that your flow or rhythm of the game comes in.
But doesn't your box show more percentage of raising than it does calling?
It does. Yep.
Oh, okay.
But
But
if you yeah, so if you click on it, and it's not super easy to see because of the colors that I use, is there are different raise sizes though, right? So it's saying 12.5% of the time. Try to make it bigger, but I don't
Yeah,
know why.
I'm zooming in to see.
12.5% of the time it says go 6 big blinds or 83% pot. 50 or 13% of the time go 50%, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But if you look at it here, like this is the important thing, right? Is looking at the expected value, is they're all the same. Like there's no difference between these. That's why there's no wrong answer here because the expected value is all the same. Anything you
Right.
do is going to yield the same result. Just don't fold.
Yeah.
That will give you 0. All right, so we bet and we bet small, which is acceptable. We can bet small. And we'll see what they do. They called. And then we, hit the river. And this is nice because it gives us we could
Quite a
just
lot of
see
fun.
like, all right, what is our action on the river and did I do what I should do? And Raina, I will answer your question in a minute after I close this out. So that's how I go through a hand. The other things I just want to really quickly go through is under this practice tab is a trainer view. So I mentioned really quickly earlier that if you really like flashcards, this is where to go. So you could actually set it up. So if you click practice trainer, you could set it up. You could save different types of drills over here. So button, 40 big blinds and below, raise first in. And you could edit all these preferences. So you could pick all these preferences and you could just drill them. So you could do, I want to know what my opening range is. And I want to know off 40 big blinds. And I want to be under all settings, I guess. I want to be in the button. Now we can just start. Our opponents are anybody, but we are opening from the button and we can just practice. So I might want to raise this hand and it will tell you, yeah, you're right. 100% of the time, I can make this bigger. 100% of the time, I want to raise this hand. And then I just do continue. And then it will say, hey, this is what this guy's did, or this lady's doing, and this guy's doing XYZ. And then I do next hand. And then you just keep going through it. It's really fun, honestly. Like you could test your knowledge if it's something you don't really know. And then you could also have a like this, it's called hints or like the cheat on the right. I recommend having it on because like this isn't a test, right? This is just us getting familiar with ranges and stuff. So just having this open to the side. So if you're like not really sure that Jack 8 offsuit's an open, you can just look and then you're getting in the muscle memory of having it. And there's a bunch of different settings. Usually if you see the settings wheel, that's where you'll click to change things. All right, so I will pop back open this. Where'd it go? Over here. And wrap this up. Because I went far longer, but I'm not surprised. So Raina, I play for the past 2 years. I've been playing average buy-in online about $22. So anywhere between an $11 tournament online to a like $109 tournament online. And that transitions to live games to be about from $300 to $1,000 live games. And now I'm playing live tournaments. And I am staying in the range from about $400 to $1,000 buy-in tournaments. And all no limit hold'em at this moment.
And you're in Vegas?
No, I live in Cleveland, Ohio.
Gee,
yeah,
where do you play?
It's a great question. It's really hard. It's so I have a casino I could actually walk to. I don't love playing there because it's very small tournaments and Cleveland is very low income, so it's not the best player pool to play against because you really want to target player pools that have splashy pots, a lot of money involved. But I like traveling, so I drive like within 6 hours and I go to events and then I'll fly. Like I just came home the other day from Florida.
Why aren't you here now in Chicago?
Because I was supposed to be in Florida for the Miami Poker Open, and I got sick, and I did the smart
Okay,
thing
good.
and didn't continue playing, even though I really wanted to play.
Fair
Um,
enough.
Yeah, I was bummed. But I am still in the progress of figuring out my next month of schedule. How to study. So if you're just independently in GTO Wizard studying your pre-flop spots, what do you do? How do you know what to do? Well, I highly recommend looking at your highest frequency spots and looking at them at varying stack depths and different stages of the tournament if you have that version of the wizard. And I put here, what are the highest frequency spots for new players or like people who haven't really studied before? That's going to be your button versus big blind. Those positions you're going to be in those most. Cutoff versus button, small blind versus big blind, button versus small blind. So if you study these four, and when I say study them, I mean spend a whole week on it. Spend 2 weeks on even just button versus big blind at these different things. Do the drills. Find some YouTube content or Pocket Queens content on button versus big blind. A lot of times there's stuff there, and really hone your knowledge on that particular thing, and then practice it. Go
That's
out,
great.
play live, play online, come home, record those hands, and look on the wizard if you are actually doing what you've been learning, or if you have opportunity areas. Growth is not a linear staircase. Growth is a spiral. There are things that I learned 2 years ago that I thought I had down, and then I still make those mistakes. So you got to be really, you got to just keep honing it and honing it and honing it until it's in your muscle memory and you're unconscious about it. Repetition. I didn't even read that. That's funny. Big advocate for repetition. And do small additions to your game. You don't need to be Hercules. You don't need to add everything overnight. If you learn one thing, try that on. Do that a few times, then add on another thing. I don't want you opening all of the hands that GTO Wizard is opening. If right now you're opening 10% of hands and GTO Wizard is telling you to open 30%, don't do that. That's going to kill you. You're going to lose money because you don't know how to play those other 20% of hands. Start from 10 to 15%. Start small. Then when you get a little comfortable, add in more. And then, like I just said, analyze and share your hands. The Pocket Queen community is so amazing. I don't have to tell you, you're all here. You know that. A lot of people don't know that, but there's so much information, and the people that are supplying hand history reviews, like you can't pay for that elsewhere. Like I mean, you could pay for it, but you're gonna pay hundreds of dollars potentially. So utilize it. It's a wonderful resource. And then I just threw this in here. If you look at GTO Wizard, their help section in one of the links that I shared with Nan, it gives you ideas on how to study and how to use the wizard. And
This
you're
is
good.
right. That was right in there. That's in GTO Wizard somewhere.
Yeah, yep. I think Nan, where are you gonna put it?
I'm gonna create, a channel with all the resources and just gonna link right underneath, our lesson, because this is sensational. I think that's exactly, what we needed to like kick us in the butt to do
Yeah,
some
right. Get it
over
going.
work.
Yeah, I really appreciate this lesson. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mikha is incredible. I have an eye.
I love teaching. I love helping other people grow, and especially when it's something I'm this passionate about. So
Absolutely.
if you need a little hand holding when you're first getting started, feel free to message me.
Yes.
I'm on Discord.